on, especially as an Eagles fan, and the Eagles just got beat by Dallas, and with a phenomenal performance from Amari Cooper. It seemed like Dak Prescott is kind of a different guy now. You've got Ezekiel Elliott just running like he did in the first year. It seems now that Dallas kind of figured out how to play this game of offense that they've been missing for so long. We've said it. You don't want Cole Beasley being your number one receiver. I feel like Amari Cooper has sort of changed things around there. They've got a tight end that they're looking at more often that seems to be kind of the next coming. And so Dallas is the one that I've got my eye on. You've got a recent win against the Saints if you're Jason Garrett in Dallas. So that's got to give you confidence. Now you just took care of the defending Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. That's got to feel pretty good if you can just win out probably one or two of the next 3 games to close out the year. You're going to take that division. I like Dallas to be someone you got to keep an eye on, even more than the Vikings. The Vikings right now aren't scaring anybody. I don't think Seattle's really scaring anybody. So for me, if I'm the Saints or the Rams, I'm watching out for the Cowboys more than anybody.
Dallas looks very dangerous right now. And the fact that Dallas feels like one of those teams that gets into playoffs when those games are close, when you're just trying to get first down, put drives together. It's not all these high-scoring, high-powered offensive showcases that we see early in the season or only in domes or warm weather at this time of year when play gets outside or in the elements or everybody gets more conservative. It feels like that sort of plays into what Dallas does. They can control the game with Zeke Elliott. We've seen their defense step up, and you have a mobile quarterback that can go out and get you first downs. Very similar to what Trubisky can do as well. You kind of worry about Trubisky's shoulder. Is he one of those guys that's one hit away from leaving, and then your season falls on Chase Daniel's shoulders? So that would be my concern for them. But, yeah, I think Dallas, what they've been able to do, the win streak that they've put together, the teams that they've beaten that we really didn't think that they were going to be able to beat and have this type of win streak, I think they're dangerous because now they have a clear wide receiver one that you have to account for. You cannot just single him up or you're going to get burnt like what we saw happen on Sunday. If you leave only 6 or 7 in the box, Zeke is going to eat you alive, and they're using him a lot more in the pass game. So I think Dallas has put themselves in a position where they can challenge. The difference will be, can they go on the road and do that? Defense and run game normally travel well in road games. So, yeah, I think Dallas could be a tough out. If you're sitting there and you're the Rams or the Saints for your first game after Wild Card weekend after their bye, and one of those two teams are going to catch potentially Dallas and the other one Chicago, that's going to be a wild weekend of games for sure. Eric, a team that, again, is trending in the wrong way. It seems like we always talk about them because they seem to have all kinds of drama around them. It's either really good or really bad. Right now, it's a really bad stretch. The Pittsburgh Steelers found a new way to take their play to a new low as they lost to a Raiders team that has seemingly quit. At least the front office seems to be quitting, hoping to get a high draft pick. But the Raiders keep playing pretty tough, and they beat the Steelers in Oakland. Eric, the Steelers now find themselves at 7-5-1. There's a ton of traffic in that AFC playoff picture, all setting there at 7-6, including the Ravens in the Steelers division. We talked about a little bit on the show last week of the Steelers' upcoming schedule that includes a home game versus the Patriots, who just lost a crazy game in Miami. So you know they're not very happy coming into Pittsburgh. And then you have Pittsburgh traveling to the Saints for a Week 16 matchup, and then they'll finish up at Cincinnati. So there's a very good chance that Pittsburgh could lose their next 2 games. And when you look at the schedules for the other team, Eric, it doesn't seem to be too crazy to think that some of those other teams could run the table, get to 10 wins. Baltimore could even potentially jump the Steelers and put them in a position where they would need a wild card spot. And that might not even be available with the Chargers pretty much having the 5th seed locked up. So do you think that Pittsburgh could actually miss the playoffs?
When you sent me the show notes this week with this very question on it, I thought, this is crazy. I mean, how can I really even think about Pittsburgh missing the playoffs? And then I thought, well, Justin's usually really on point with his show notes. Maybe I better look at this a little bit closer. And what I found was exactly what you're looking at. The fact that the Ravens, Colts, Titans, and Dolphins are all 7-6. That doesn't bode well for a Pittsburgh Steelers team that's leading the division at 7-5-1 with upcoming games against the Patriots, Saints, and then division rival Bengals, which, no matter how bad they are, always seem to play the Steelers tough. I don't like where Pittsburgh's situation's at right now. I really don't, Justin, because I think there's no way that the Patriots lose this coming weekend. They're still in the fight for as high of a seed as they can get. They're 9-4. They don't want to lose because the Dolphins are behind them at 7-6. And with 3 games to play, if something really crazy happens, the Patriots could lose the division. Now, again, not likely, but if you're the Patriots, you still have the mindset of every game matters. And this game with Pittsburgh really matters to the Patriots. Imagine if the Chiefs were somehow to lose the last 3 games of the year. This game matters to the Patriots a lot. And so I think they beat the Steelers. Then you've got a Saints team who is still in a battle for home field advantage. I think they're going to be no picnic for the Steelers. I could literally see the Steelers going 1-2 if they beat the Bengals over the next 3 weeks. Here's the problem, Justin. That leaves them at 8-7-1. The Ravens have a bit of an easier road against the Bucs, Chargers, and Browns. Again, the Bucs have played people tough. The Browns have played people tough, but let's just say we saw the Ravens play the Chiefs tough. Let's say the Ravens go 2-1. Let's say they lose to the Chargers, but still go 2-1. That puts them at 9-7. That means the Ravens win that division, bumping the Steelers down to that fight for the additional wild card spot, which you accurately pointed out. The Chargers have one of them wrapped up. That leaves one left. Oh, but by the way, here's the problem. The Colts are more than likely to go 2-1 over their remaining 3. The Titans could go 2-1 over their remaining 3. Then you have the Dolphins, which I believe will go 1-2 over their remaining 3, but you never know about their game against the Vikings or the Jags. 3 other teams at 9-7. Not a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers because, Justin, that means they are out. And never mind the fact that what if Denver wins out? That would put them at 9-7. It all adds up to Pittsburgh being in a very, very bad spot.
And you look at the Texans that are sitting there at 9-4 as well. So New England can't take their foot off the gas because they are at risk for not having an opening round bye and have to play a 6 seed that's one of these teams that we're just talking about. And they certainly don't want to do that. They definitely want to get that bye and have as many home games as they possibly can, which would probably only be 1 at this point because it doesn't look like they can run down the Chiefs. Thursday Night Football is going to be the Chargers going into Kansas City. They're only 1 game back of them right now, and then they could potentially be tied. And then you've got that whole mess sitting there. So I think that if Pittsburgh loses 2 games out of their next 3, they're not going to make the playoffs because I think Baltimore may go 2-1 over that stretch, so they would win the division. And then even a team like Miami, they're going to go at Minnesota this coming week. Well, Minnesota's going to be coming off of a game where they had to travel to Seattle on a short week and come back home. Then they get Jacksonville, and then they're at Buffalo. Jacksonville, for all intents and purposes, has quit. It certainly looked like that on Thursday night, or Derrick Henry would agree with me there. And then they go to the Bills, who Josh Allen looks like he's incapable of throwing the ball. He can only run the ball. He's now turned into Michael Vick. I think Pittsburgh could be in big trouble. Now, look, this team tends to respond when there's drama around them and when their backs are against the wall. But without having James Conner, you've got Le'Veon Bell that's not on that team anymore. He's on social media liking posts about the Steelers losing. They're very much all Antonio Brown and all Juju Smith-Schuster. And you know that Belichick is going to try to take them away as much as they can and make Ben look for his third option. And you start to wonder, who is that going to be when it comes to Sunday? So I think right there is one. And we know how good the Saints are in that dome. They've been on the road for 3 straight weeks at that point. They'll be coming back into New Orleans. They know that they're in a fight for the number 1 seed in the NFC and home field advantage throughout. So you know they're going to be playing hard. So this is not going to be easy for Pittsburgh. And again, just the way that these schedules work themselves out over the last 3 games for 4 other teams, there's a lot of winnable ball games, and Pittsburgh simply has the toughest schedule of all of them. So, Eric, let me ask you this. We saw on Sunday that the Colts went into Houston. They ended the Texans' 9-game win streak. The Colts do have a few tough games left. They'll play Dallas, and then they actually play the Titans. So when you look at this Colts team where we thought they were, but you see the way that Luck is playing, offensive line is playing better, do you look at them as a potential sleeper team similar to what Tennessee did last year as a wild card team when they went into Kansas City and won a game, that the Colts, if they got in, could do that? Or do you look at Tennessee as more of that sneaky team? Or is it somebody like Miami or the Ravens that you have your eye on if they get to that 6th seed that they could win at least one game?
Yeah, I'd probably, out of the choices, I'd probably take the Colts only because they have Andrew Luck, and the Titans just haven't seemed...
Your favorite quarterback.
Yeah, they just haven't seemed like the team. But Andrew Luck, I've always said he's really overrated, but he's played very well this year when he's not throwing interceptions, and he hasn't thrown as many this year as he has in the past. So look, when he has protection and when the Colts seem to have their offense going, T.Y. Hilton is still there. Andrew Luck finds him, and the things that they can do together are really as good as someone like a Manning and a Reggie Wayne. I mean, that's bringing that high-powered passing offense back to the Indianapolis Colts. I do think they lose to the Cowboys because I think the Cowboys just will be so motivated to wrap up that NFC East now. But I can legitimately see the Colts winning against the Giants and probably winning against the Titans because they're going to want it so badly. The Titans, they benefit sometimes from great performances out of one guy or the other, but you just haven't seen them perform outside of their peaks and valleys all year. So they don't really scare me as much. Maybe in a 2-quarter, 3-quarter scenario, they can play phenomenal football. But once we get to the playoffs, they don't scare me. The Colts do scare me a little bit if I'm one of those other teams as someone who could maybe knock me out in the first round. I don't think the Colts are really more of a deep playoff run team though. So yeah, I guess I see where you're going with that. Play kind of the Titans role of last year. But beyond that, I don't see them or anybody else. The Dolphins don't really scare me. Ravens maybe. But again, I think the Ravens win that division anyway after what we talked about with the Steelers. So out of the teams remaining, I like where you're at with the Colts.
The Colts' biggest problem is going to be if they can get through this coming week when they host Dallas. If they can win that game, I think they do have a chance to get there because then they'll basically control their destiny at that point. If they can win against the Giants, and then they'll basically play an elimination type game in week 17 when they go to Tennessee. And those two teams could be playing for that 6th seed at that point, because then we'll know Pittsburgh's results from week 15 and week 16 with that Patriots and Saints matchups that they'll have. And we'll also be able to see if the Ravens were able to get by the Chargers, for example, could they win that game and be 2-0 at that point? We'll have a better feel, and that game could be flexed into that Sunday night game where they're playing for that 6th seed at that point. I agree with you. Miami, I don't know what to think of them. They just win games in ugly fashion, and it just makes you wonder if they can go into a playoff situation on the road and be able to just have that kind of luck and have everything sort of fall into place for them. So I'm not completely sold on them, but I definitely think the Colts could be a tough matchup for someone just with what they can do. They've made such strides on their offensive line that they're just not getting Luck killed every single play. And they've played very good football. And you can tell that Luck is starting to get back into the groove of things. And Tennessee, Eric's another team. I don't feel like I know how to trust them. They play really good. They go to Dallas on a Monday night in prime time and they look great. Then they come back and they look awful. Then they struggle to beat a Jets team. And then they throttle Jacksonville last week. But a large part of that was due to the game that Derrick Henry put together, 17 carries, 238 yards, and 4 TDs. So, Eric, I want to get your take on something here as we close out segment 1. Derrick Henry had a chance in that game to go back in and get his 5th rushing touchdown of the game. Head coach Mike Vrabel was trying to get Derrick Henry in, and he flat wouldn't. He wouldn't go back into the game. He wanted Dion Lewis to get a chance to score there at the end. The crowd was going crazy. They wanted to see history made. They wanted to see him get his 5th rushing TD. But post-game, Derrick Henry said, look, everybody's got to eat. I wanted to be an unselfish guy. I don't care about records. If I set a record, it's just going to be something that gets broken down the road. So what do you think about Derrick Henry's mindset in that situation? Should he have just listened to his coach and gone in, or do you like his unselfishness?
Being that they were up by so many points, I love what he did. From just a fan's perspective, you think, you don't see that too often in the NFL or the NBA or really any sport where a guy just says, you know what, we're up by a lot of points. I'd like to see some of my teammates have a chance to score this game. And I don't feel like it's a pity move. I feel like it's, hey, I'm just part of this running crew and I happen to have a great night. I'm not going in. Just put Dion in. Now, Dion tried a couple times, didn't get there. And then they put Derrick in and he tried and he didn't get there. So it didn't end up happening. But I was really impressed with the fact that, he refused to put his helmet on. And now if it was a close game, now let's say, it's within 3 points or within one score or something, record or not, if the coach tells you to go in because he feels like you're the best player to score the points, then you've got to go in. You just have to at that point. But they were up by so much and it was sort of garbage time, and I had no issue with that. Justin, the question I was going to have for you is, I would really struggle with that because as a human being, as a competitive former athlete, I would want to score the points. I would want to have more rushing yards. I would want to try to do as much as I could. The game's out of reach for the Jags at that point. It's probably okay to be a little selfish and look at individual stats. Again, when you're in a tight game, it's not about the individual stats, but in that moment, maybe it was. I would really struggle, and I just wanted to kind of ask you, as someone who's